As a longtime Kiss fan, one of the things that I've always found mesmerizing about them is Paul Stanley's vocals. Something that's unique about the way that he performs is that he remains in character even when he talks to the audience and between songs. And if you are a newer Kiss fan, you're starting to listen to their discography and digging way back, you hear Kiss Alive 1 or Kiss Alive 2, those moments are going to stand out to you just because it's so unusual to hear a performer projecting their voice in a almost like a preacher. On studio albums, Paul Stanley has this incredible excitement and energy. Isn't really dependent upon effects. It comes through the character that he's adopted, Star Child, and I think that really helps him. While you could also argue that Peter Criss has the best natural singing voice in the band, he never developed his singing voice as much as Paul Stanley did. So Paul Stanley might not have a better singing voice, natural singing voice, than Peter Criss. But Paul Stanley really worked with his voice, and he integrated it into his songwriting and made it a focal point for everything Kiss did, basically. So if we go back to the first album and look at a song like Strutter, what you've got basically is a Led Zeppelin type approach with a harmony vocal over the top, which is something Led Zeppelin never did. This puts the lead singer of the band in a relatively interesting position, knowing that they have to create excitement during the solo vocal parts, but they also have to blend in very well with the rest of the band when it comes to the harmony parts. And, one of the things that Paul Stanley does to create that excitement is spike the melodies of his vocals really high and really low. And I don't mean like singing in falsetto or bass. I mean like creating vocal melodies that have a really dramatic up and down swing to them. And adding his trademark whoops into the beginnings and ends of his vocal phrasing helps him to do this roller coaster effect. And in a song like Black Diamond, he shows how he can frame up the lead vocal for Peter Criss by doing this really gentle, reflective opening. And this is something that Paul Stanley continues to use as a technique throughout most of the albums, the original lineup of Kiss. What he's doing is seeing how his vocals can set the stage for Simmons or Criss to reflect back on during their parts. So when we jump to Hotter Than Hell, Got to Choose is a song that really shows Paul Stanley's vocal abilities and his vocal choices and style, and it's one that a lot of people don't remember. Now, the studio version of this one's got kind of a plodding tempo to it, and it's almost hard to listen to, so I recommend listening to the live version, Detroit Rock City, off the album Destroyer, where this is the album where I really feel Paul Stanley's vocals started to peak. I think that he continued to be a really accomplished vocalist on through, say, all the way up through Crazy Nights even, but at this point on Destroyer is when he became the true lead singer of Kiss. Destroyer, he really is the frontman of the band, and it's ironic given that the breakout song from Destroyer, of course, was Beth, that features Peter Criss on lead vocals. On I Want You from Rock and Roll Over, he takes the same formula from Black Diamond with a gentle, reflective vocal at the opening and then a really kickin' hard rock delivery for the bulk of the song. Only on this occasion he sings both parts, and this shows how he was developed. Mr. Speed and Makin' Love both show how Stanley was starting to become a really good radio-friendly pop vocalist. And the song Hard Luck Woman on here he wrote, but ended up having Peter Criss sing, and it almost makes you wonder what would have happened if he had chosen to do the lead vocal on that particular song. I know that they would have had to change the key, potentially change the arrangement a bit, and the thing is, I would have liked to have heard it. I'm going to go ahead and skip over Love Gun and just talk about the solo album, where you get a lot more multi-tracking of Paul Stanley's vocals, and a lot more care was taken with them. There's a lot more background vocals, there's a lot more vocal melody. Songs like Tonight You Belong to Me and Move On and Ain't Quite Right are vocal feast, especially if you're a Paul Stanley fan. And one thing to note is while he retains that stadium-friendly, powerful vocal delivery, he has immersed way more into the pop and leading into almost disco and dance type shades. And I think that's a good combination. I think that he spent all those years playing in a hard rock band, made him almost ideally suited to start making a shift, if not a great radical shift, but like a calculated shift almost to a more pop delivery. All right, I just want to talk about one more song and then kind of wind it up. And that song is I Still Love You from Creatures of the Night. Now, say what you will about this song, there's one element of it that really connects to this discussion of Paul Stanley's vocals, which is he is consciously aware of what that song is doing, that it's a, quote, heavy metal power ballad. And I want you to listen to it again with that in mind, how he is almost delivering a satirical version of it, but knowing that it's Paul Stanley doing it, which I think is a great thing. And he has enough control over his vocal and his vocal style and choices to pull this off without it being an actual novelty song. What you have to take in mind if you're going to assess Paul Stanley's vocal abilities is not only the raw voice talent that he has, which is considerable because he has power, he has volume, he has range. You also have to consider the thought that went behind it. He created a persona and then he used his innate vocal skills to project that persona. He didn't build the persona around his vocals. He used his vocal skills to project the persona that he unearthed from his imagination. He was able to work within the parameters of that persona and his vocal style to do a whole bunch of different kinds of music. He was able to do disco, I Was Made for Loving You. He was able to do super hard rock songs like I mentioned, Detroit Rock City. And then he was able to do gentler, ballady type songs. But he was also a great team player in that he was able to integrate his vocals into the harmony singing that is a signature part of Kiss that doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion. So overall, I think that Paul Stanley was a really accomplished vocalist and a true artist as a frontman. He came into his own over time, and you can watch his development as a singer and as a frontman by tracing the history of Kiss and listening to the albums. So I think that's kind of cool too. Whether or not his voice is shot and he is lip syncing now, at one time he was a truly great rock vocalist, and we're all really lucky to have experienced it. This is what I think. If you have a thought on this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please comment in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.